So lastly, part C. Modify the code you wrote in part B so that it will use a loop to get dates from user input and then return the appropriate names. If the date entered is not between 2010 to 2018 inclusive, then return a random response. Terminate the loop if the user enters a blank. Alright, so this part has, you can actually break this down into a few different steps. So first, let's take our program from B and make a new file. Again, this didn't specify what this file should be named, so I'm just naming it pick a Turing winner c.java. Pasting this in, and then updating the class name with C. So, let's break this down. The first part is to continuously read in a year and then be able to print out the corresponding names. So let's start. Let's first comment this out. We don't need this. Actually, let's get rid of this too. Okay. So our data is the same, and then first we need to scan in a date, so we should create a scanner. Okay. Now we can start our loop. So all I know at this point is that I need to continuously read and print stuff. I'm not sure what this condition will be, so I'll leave it as blank and come fill it back after when things are more clear. So the first thing we need to do is prompt the user for a date. Date. Okay. And so to enter the date on the same line, I want to do something like this, where I just print date in a space. And then let me comment this out. Okay. So I read in a date, and then I want to generate this response for the corresponding date, and let's just assume first that this date will be in the correct range. So we can move this into the loop. Okay. So we prompt the user for a date, then we create the date. Okay. So I read it in as a line rather than as an integer, and we'll see why that is in a little bit. So I read in the date, and then I want to say, first I want to be able to search through this array to find the matching date, and then print out the data. But I can use a trick here. Rather than looping through this and finding the matching year, since I ordered this from 2010 to 2018, I actually know which index I should be at without having to check. So first, I'll parse this out to a integer. Okay. And now, so if they enter 2010, then I want to index 0. If they enter 2018, I want to index at index 8. So to get the index, let's do this. Actually, let's keep this as a year. why don't I try something like this? Okay, so when they enter 2010, I'll get 0. 2018, I'll get index 8, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is correct, and everything in between should be correct as well. So I don't have to loop through this and find a matching year anymore. If you notice, you can also just take the modulo, it would give you the same result. But anyways, so I read in a date, I parse it to an integer, I convert the year to the index that I want, and then I print this out. And so at this time, let's just keep on doing it forever. So if we compile what we have so far, oh, I named my file wrong. Pick a turning winner C. There we go. Okay. Forgot to import scanner. Let's try this again. Okay. Let's run it. So let's start with 2010. Looks correct. 2018 looks correct. 2009 index out of bounds exception, which is correct because I index at -1. So now we need to check if our year is within the correct range. So after parsing out this year, then we can just check if year is less than 2010 or the year is greater than 2018, then I want to generate a random year. So let's do and same thing between 0 and 8 inclusive. And then I'll make a copy of this. Right. Otherwise, take this index, do the same thing. Okay, so if a year is not in range, generate a random index, print out. Otherwise, we do it year minus 2010, and then print that out. So let's try this now. So now 2009, we get a random year. 2010, we get the right year. And lastly, we need to do this last part where if the user inputs a blank, in other words, they hit enter, then we need to exit and press buy. So let's try this now. If I hit enter, I get a number format exception. And that's because right here, when I read in the input date, when I hit enter, it reads in as an empty string. So when it tries to parse the empty string to an integer, I get a number format exception right here. So that means I need to check whether what I entered was a blank or not before I try to parse the number. So we can just do this. And here's the empty string. It's just an empty set of quotations. If the input date equals blank, then break from the loop. And outside our loop, we can just print by. Okay. And then if it doesn't equal this blank, then we can assume a valid number was entered, and then we can go ahead and parse it. So let's try this out one last time. Okay, so we hit enter, it says bye. Let's do 2010, that's correct, 2018, that's correct, 2015, 2009, and then let's go to the high and out of our range, 2019, it again generates a random one. And then if we hit enter, it leaves. So that was it. We first set up this loop and did this part of the assignment in parts. First we did the reading in, handling the normal case. Then we modified the program to handle years out of range. And then lastly, we modified the program to handle the case where we want to break out of the loop.